Hi, I'm Christy Davis, Curator of Exhibitions at the Camp Museum of Art, and I'm here with Kaylee Pisani-Page, our Curator of Collections and Registrar, and one of our feature artists right now, Judith Brandon, who has the exhibit Approaching the Shift here in the Education Gallery.
And we're here to talk to her a little bit about her work and her process and just have some fun.
And I'm going to answer the questions.
First of all, I think a good question is like, when did you become an artist and how did you become an artist? How'd that happen?
Oh, being an artist, that's something you just kind of are born into.
Yeah.
So when I was really little, I didn't talk a lot, and a good form of communication for me was drawing. And it's amazing how many times I had to get sent to a therapist, and the therapist always understood what my drawings were. So I was like, well, then why do I need to talk at all if they're getting it? So this is good. I mean, inadvertently it validated me, so I kept drawing.
And here you are now.
Yes, I keep drawing. It's like, it's an emotional output, and clearly as a little kid, that just still hung on with me.
So one of the coolest pieces or parts about your work are all of the hidden elements of it. So what are some of your favorite PG hidden elements in?
Oh, hidden elements.
So many good ones.
Well, this piece obviously has quite a few, but there's one that just always surprises me because I really like hawks. I think of hawks as a good omen for me.
Oh, I saw one this morning.
Yeah, so there's a little guy right here. He came out with his little bushy hair. His tail goes back down this way. But when I'm working, sometimes things just show up, and like I'll see an eye to something, and like anybody would mention. But I get the ability to say, hey, cool, I see you, and I'll put you in the piece. And sometimes they get erased out later on, but lots of times things stay or get more enhanced as I work on them.
It's amazing. It's amazing that you have that ability. I really like this monkey here.
Yeah.
And he's sitting next to a cat, and they're both looking this way.
There's something about whenever I do a light pillar or light beam, which, I meditate before I work, so there's light from above and light from below, and I want to share that with people. These creatures always seem to be facing that direction. Like the same thing happened in Celestial Sleepwalker. Like everything looks towards the sunset. It's just very interesting. Like I couldn't intentionally draw things that way. They just come out.
It just comes to you. Yeah. Almost like they're looking towards the positivity. This one, by the way, is called Astral Energies. You should probably say that.
Yes.
Well, with so many elements in each drawing, how do you determine when a piece is finished?
Oh, they're never done. Work's never done. You just, I can always look at something and want to improve it. But you have to move on. You just have to move on and take that as
You have to stop.
yeah.
And do you work in, I think I've heard before where you work in like a circle? Like you have a big piece of paper and you work around
Yeah.
it?
Well, for these big pieces, I have a giant board that I lift up against the wall, vertical and horizontal flat. So when I do the geometry or scribing, or I have a lot of pigment that I need to get on the paper, it's got to be flat. And so, so they get tacked to boards, and then I have to stay in shape so I can lift them up,
Yeah,
and turn them around, because sometimes I can't reach the tops of some of the pieces, so they get worked on upside down.
Yeah, none of these are lightweight. We can attest to that.
Yes.
It's yes. The exhibit.
Yes. Yeah.
So what would you say is the hardest part of developing your drawings?
The hardest part, I think when it's almost finished, like we were talking about, it's like there's a crazy sensation that happens in your body, like, oh, it's almost done, and I could really screw it up now if I go the wrong direction, and just leaving it alone. I think that's the hardest thing, is to just sometimes just walk away and know that you can come back to it later.
So obviously weather plays a role in all of your work, but what would you say, aside from weather patterns, inspires your drawings?
Oh, well, weather and nature is just a great metaphor for emotion. But the other inspiration, geometry, the sacred geometry, which I think goes in spirit, numbers, music, those things are all inspirational to me. A secret concoction of iPod. It's very interesting. iPod dictates where things will go, and I'll actually ask for music that inspire me. And one instance was the day after Prince died. I couldn't figure out what color to start my next piece on, and I only have one Prince CD in my iPod. And 3 of those songs came up in a row the day after he died. And I was like, okay, purple. I'm putting it into purple. So yes, that's how the iPod works. But I have classical music. I listen to a lot of Nick Cave, Jeff Buckley, contemporary stuff. I have friends who send me music all the time. I'll listen to anything anybody sends me for the most part.
I love how Prince inspired your color choices.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes I'll be working and one line of a song will come through really strong, and it feels like somebody hit a bell on the side of my head, and it's like, oh, I just take that as I understand that's a direction that I should be going.
I like it speaks to you, yeah. Yeah, like people see signs and things all the time, in music and things they see, and they take those as signs, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
It's been working, so I'm not going to fight it.
Yeah, like leads you in the direction.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any pieces in this exhibit that you feel like have a secret story that people should take away when they see this exhibit?
A secret story.
They all have very good stories.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. A secret story. That's an interesting.
Or maybe a story you really like.
Yeah. Well, they all have certain meanings to them, but as far as a secret story, I guess the dreaming would kind of be the one secret story and aftermath as well, just because it was a really unusual event that happened that created aftermath, which is so weird when I think about it, but it's a good path.
An aftermath is this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think one thing to tell anybody watching this video too is that you can see the artwork in the video, but it doesn't do it justice until you see it in person, because there's so many elements of the work that you can't pick up in video.
Yes.
And you have to kind of really get into it. A safe distance.
Yeah. That is a part of the element of working in layers of things, but that's why, when people get to see them in person, they can actually, engage with them on multiple levels, and that's always my goal. It's just to engage the viewer, feel something. Somebody comes away and has an emotional response to one of my pieces, then I feel like I've done my job. I think this is a service.
And this piece was very emotional for you, wasn't it? Aftermath.
Yes, so the story about Aftermath was, I was working on a piece in March 2011 called Tsunami, and it was coming along, and I was doing some more experimental things, and I was making a great big wave, and I was working on it late at night, and I'd almost finished it, and I came in the next morning, and the news had hit that the tsunami had just crushed Japan. And there I had the wave that I was calling tsunami, and that was the title of the piece, and then that happened. And I realized I consciously wasn't aware that something like that was happening, but it was emotional for me to look at that piece and know that that had happened. And I immediately was like, whoa, I gotta get something else going. So I'm like, I'm gonna go with bright yellow, I'm gonna make something super happy. But as the course of events goes, things started to develop, and I just let myself go with the flow and not try to control it. So the smoke started happening, and this thing, and I was like, this is pretty cool. I don't know what's going on there, but I kind of like what's happening. And then my friend comes into my studio, and he looks at it and he goes, oh my God, you got the nuclear meltdown too! And I was like, crap! And then I was like, okay, I now accept it. Sometimes my hand is gonna be ahead of my head, I'm just, sometimes when you're drawing and working, things come through when you're very focused that you're not aware of. You know? So it's not quite a bellwether, but it's definitely, I'm definitely tapping into something sometimes.
Yeah, pulls you in that direction.
Yeah.
What is some of the hidden imagery now? And can you point some of that out?
Sure, there's a little skeleton on that
Yeah.
up here. And very suddenly there's a little village down here. Initially in most of my pieces, there'd be a tiny little scratch village that I would describe with an enameling tool. When I was an enamelist, I still have the same tool. So his little foot comes down and he's crushing this thing. And then weirdly, this like bizarre frog came out of here. And I always think of frogs as the things that tell us what's going on in the world. And then there's a little skeleton guy right here, which is a little head right there. Yeah. There might be other things in there that I've forgotten about too, that sometimes I just don't know. Yeah. Sometimes somebody else points it out to me and I'm like, well, it's there, so.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are definitely interactive pieces, which is incredible for two-dimensional art to be that interactive.
And so powerful.
Thank you for that. Thank you. When I was really little and I wasn't speaking much, and I would follow the cat around the house, and my siblings used to say, "Judy's being the cat again." And I'd be like, "Hey, look at the choices. I think the cat's not a bad choice." You know?
I don't think so either. I have 4 cats. I'm like a crazy cat lady now. Like one more, I think, tips me over the edge into crazy cat lady territory.
Yeah, I think 4 is the limit here.
Yeah. How many cats do you have?
2. It's always 2.
Okay, so you're in the safe zone.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, well, if you have 1, then you're in trouble. Because then you have to be the cat. You have to have 2 cats.
Yeah. You have to have companions for each other.
Yeah.
I just have dogs.
You're the cat. Any other pieces that I want to talk about? The choo-choo and the volcano choo-choo in the realm of all possibility. Those are
the ones I was thinking of. That's so weird.
those are fun because I really remember the place I was when I was. Well, that's because it was the last piece finished. But the choo-choo I love because it's red. Intensely red for a long time.
I love the choo-choo.
Yeah. There's nothing really in here, but I really felt like I was just changing studios. I went from West 78th Street in Cleveland to behind my friend's building that makes nuts and bolts, and I was in transition, and so the choo-choo was a good metaphor for me. I was really just trying to make bigger work, try and expand that. And there's so many houses out there. I was feeling a little downhearted. You get a lot of rejections, and largely because I don't think work translates that well on a computer, and that is the way people are viewing work now. You have to really do a good job documenting your pieces. But so I was in that mode when I was drawing the choo-choo. Yeah, I'm gonna chug right up this hill.
Yeah, it looks so powerful. It's also a very motivational piece, like you said. Like, keep on chugging.
Yeah.
Keep going up that hill.
Yeah.
How hard it is.
Yeah.
And you're right, there's a lot of red in this compared to other pieces.
Right, I don't even know where that red is. I don't know what happened to that red. I've been looking for it, but I know that I used some oil, a little thing of oil inks in there. That's one thing. I will use anything that will make the mark that I want. And, sometimes it's just within reaching distance and I don't even know what it is.
I love the colors of the realm of all possibilities.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Reminds me of cotton candy.
Yeah, cotton candy. It is. I like the light that we're flowing out of this here. I think of that as what we're all kind of going through, a little stressed out, and everybody's so weary, and it seems like there's, we just need a little heart lift and a little more. Everybody needs a little more love and attention, a little more light. So, Through the Clouds, which is classic Cleveland sort of thing. People ask me if Cleveland affects or influences my work.
Yeah.
And yes, I don't know what a direct light source looks like. I'm always shocked when I go to other places, and I'm wearing sunglasses, and they have long shadows, and though we had a lot of that this summer, largely I'm looking through clouds and trying to get through the layers to the light, which is perfect for what I'm always trying to communicate. It's like there's always light, there's always hope and goodness.
Are there any artists that have influenced your work?
Yes, just about everything I look at influences me. But I really had attention from Mark Rothko. That's why you see a lot of the pieces divided in certain sections.
And how colors use so much
Yeah,
emotion.
yeah. I think, Slumbering Monk is definitely one that was influenced by Rothko painting. His use of colors is brave, tons of layers, his spiritual connection to his work, those things influence me. But I also like Franz Kleick because he likes cats. Cats, and I love a good gesture. If you can make a good gesture from it, it's fantastic.
So cats are the way to your heart.
Yeah.
This exhibit is on display here at the Camp Museum of Art through October 25th of this year. So if you haven't come and seen Judith's work in person, please make sure to reserve your time ticket and come see it because it is well worth the trip.
Yes, it is. And is there anything else you want to throw out there before we call it a day?
Yeah, stay well, come, see the art. There's a lot of great art in this museum. Yes. And go out and play. Crying out loud.
Yeah, it's nice out.
Yeah, everybody needs to go outside and play. See the beauty outside.
It's really beautiful outside right now. Being here with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
It's always fun to hang out.
Yes. I always learn something about myself when I come to visit you too,
Oh.
which is really a good thing.
I was gonna say, I hope that's a good thing.
Well, we'll talk about that later.